it is. I think if you look out over the last decade, as you mentioned, it's doubled in terms of the number of female founders, and that's incredibly exciting. What we have seen in the last few years is there are more fundings, there are more companies, and the numbers are edging up slightly. So if you look year over year, it doesn't look very dramatic, but if you look over the last 10 years, there has been a huge amount of funding towards female founders at all stages, and that represents in the last 5 years 10,000 companies. So that's a lot of female founders. And we see that in the reporting that we do. We see that in tech. So it definitely feels encouraging and very different.
Well, help us wade through some of these numbers, Janae, because Crunchbase started tracking this. You saw the second highest total funding for female companies in 2019, 26.7 billion. But sounds like a lot, but it was a major drop off from 44.8 billion that you saw in 2018. Did this follow an overall drop-off in venture funding? Why was the drop?
So 2018 was definitely a heightened venture funding, and 2019 has been a little bit lower, and that is largely to do with very large funding rounds in China has dropped off in 2019. What we did see is the 2018 number. Much of that was accredited to the largest round in venture funding, 14 billion to Ant Financial, and so the drop-off doesn't really indicate the kind of drop-off that you're seeing. In fact, the dollars year over year have been pretty steady. 3% to female founders. So that means out of every $100 that is invested, 3% go to female-only founded companies, and then about $10 out of every 100, or 10%, go to female-male co-founded companies. So year over year, the percents have stayed the same, even though 2018 was an all-time high in terms of venture funding.
Janae, we'll pull up a full screen of David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest banks here in America, saying that as of now, the company is not going to underwrite any IPOs unless they have at least one diverse candidate on their board with a focus on women. Do you think this is big enough to move in the right direction, right? The presence of females on boards, in companies, leading organizations, to get to ultimately better returns?
Yeah, what we're looking for is here at Crunchbase, and we try to democratize access and provide people with the information, which is why we do the study. What we're seeing is the number of female founders are going up, the number of women in venture are going up, and now we're also looking at board makeup. We just completed a study of private companies, the most highly valued private companies, and what we found is 60% of those companies did not have one female board member, and of all the board seats for those 200 companies, was around 7%.